Yo guys, what's up? Back with another video. Um, I've been to Africa. I won't say exactly which country. Um, obviously not to a war tour country. But what I realized is that when I was in Africa, I did not feel lonely. Look, you guys probably say because I'm just a tourist there, you really don't know the real life there. Yeah, maybe to a certain extent it's true. But what I'm trying to say here is that when I went to Africa, I realized how fucked up our social life is in the West. You guys might give me some good points and say, well, because they're poor, they have to have communities. Well, you may be right about that. But what I'm trying to say here is that, for example, in the big cities, like the more modern cities, for example, in Kenya, Nairobi, or in Tanzania, Dar es Salaam, in all these places, these big cities, I still did not feel lonely. Like I as a tourist, I did not feel lonely. And I asked a few foreigners how life is there. They say it's pretty good, despite the corruption, despite, what the media says about Black Africa. Of course, there's some problems there. Yes, there's quite a few problems. For example, black people don't know how to run a country, and all yada yada, all those things. I do agree with that to a certain extent. But for example, Ibrahim Traore is changing the script, and all that. But that's a topic for another video. But what I came to realize is that when I was in Black Africa, specifically Black Africa, what I realized with black people is that they're able to communicate themselves in a very authentic way. So, for example, in Africa, obviously you don't have time to be on social media 24/7 because you have electricity problems, right? But what you got to understand is that there's something seriously wrong with our social life in the West. Many people claim that the more a country develops, the more lonely people feel. Yes, you guys make a good point here. You guys probably are thinking about this while I'm making this video. But you gotta understand one thing. Black people have this unique ability to be able to express themselves and, be able to communicate. I don't know how to explain, like communicate in such a way where they can smile even in the worst of times. Of course, many black people unfortunately do commit a lot of crimes. Unfortunately, it's not because I'm racist or anything. No, I'm not racist, but what I'm saying is that it's the truth. I condemn racism, I condemn apartheid, but you gotta understand one thing, what I realized with black people in Africa. They're able to enjoy themselves, even when things are not going so well. Even though they have a low IQ, which majority of them do have, I'm sorry to say this, but still they are smiling along the way. This is not me hating on black people. It's just, yes, they have a low IQ. Yes, they have lack of education. Yes, but they're still smiling. What is wrong with us Westerners? What is wrong with us not being able to smile? Why does every day have to feel like a struggle in the Western world? Or even in China, where I grew up in, the country I grew up in. Why does every day have to feel like a struggle in China? Mentally. Mental stress, neurological diseases skyrocketing in rich countries. What is wrong with our mindset? Yes, we were able to develop our nations. All the rich countries over there, you guys are watching my videos as well. Including Qatar and all these rich Arab nations, right? But there is still something wrong with community when it comes to communities in Dubai, in Qatar, or in any rich countries you can name. in this video. You gotta understand that black people, not saying that, not saying that, regardless of maintenance, black people not being able to maintain infrastructure, or they're not able to, maintain infrastructure, as I said, not being able to build infrastructure by themselves without the help of the white man or the Chinese man or whatever. You guys get my point. My point is, regardless of all these issues in African countries, regardless of corruption, regardless of people not being able to maintain infrastructure, I saw the uniqueness in black people. It's not because of religion, it's not because Islam or Christianity was forced upon Africans or black people in Africa. I saw the uniqueness in black people in terms of socializing. And black people are very good at it. You can be an introvert in Africa and still not feel as lonely as a person in the Western world. And a lot of Africans who move abroad also feel the same way. They're like, there's something wrong with Western life and Eastern life, like countries like in China. There is something wrong with our social life. How can you be lonely in a city of 25 million people like in Shanghai? How can you feel lonely? 20 years ago, people had like a community back in China, and even in the Western world. Like, people had a community 20 years ago. It was completely normal to just communicate with a stranger, right? If you don't know where you are, or if you are lost in a city, people will actually help you. But nowadays, when you ask someone to help you, people will just want to get rid of you and just say, oh, it's this way, and they just say, oh, it's that way, even though they have no idea what they're talking about. But you guys get my point, right? I'm not saying this is not happening in black African countries where people just want to get rid of you and say, oh, it's this way, don't worry. I'm pointing at the wrong direction. But my point is that Africans are still able to smile, still are welcoming, still heartwarming, because they were taught to be heartwarming, even despite them having nothing, not enough adequate or surplus of food. There's not enough, but yes, they do have enough resources. Yes, they lack the ability to manage functional economies, even though they have a lot of resources. Look, this is not my point. I'm not talking about economy or politics. What I'm saying is that when it comes to socializing, when it comes to building a community, there is something wrong with us in rich countries, in the Western world and in the Eastern world, and even in the rich Arab countries. There is something wrong with us. There's seriously something wrong with us. And sometimes I don't know the exact answer, but I feel like we are so isolated. And every time you look into a person's eyes, just do me a favor. You Africans who come to Europe, the ones that come here legally, not the ones that come here illegally, they have no idea what they're doing, but the ones that come here legally, like, for example, East Africans, right? You come here to Germany, you come here to other countries in Europe or in Asia, like in China. Just do me a favor, look into people's eyes. You realize how dead they are on the inside. Like, they're like zombies, if I'm being honest. They're not even human. It doesn't feel real, There's no genuine smile anymore in rich countries. You don't have to be a rich country. You can be a rich country, still have a genuine smile, right? I don't know if there are any rich countries that have a genuine smile, but I do believe there are some rich countries that do have that. But my point is that there is something wrong with us. Like, ghosting culture is way more common in the Western world. So, I'll give you an example. For example, you had someone's contact number, and you tried to make an appointment, and then they don't have time for you. And then they try to make strange excuses that they cannot come to your birthday party, or they cannot come to, hang out. I feel like people are just ghosting each other constantly here in the West, and that's why there are more than 51% of people here in Germany that are feeling lonely. And if you guys do your research, don't just take my word for it. Do your research. Search up on Google. Um, do every 12 European does every 12th European feel lonely in Europe? And I guarantee you that Google will say yes. And do more research on that. And trust me, mark my words, I'm not wrong about that. And this is not normal. So every 12th European you see on the street feels lonely. This is not normal. Like last week or a month or so, I don't remember if it was last week or a month ago, but there was a guy sitting at a bench, and it looks like as if he's waiting for someone to just say hello to him. So I came up to him and just said, "Hello, how are you?" And his whole world changed when I said that. Like this is not normal. I don't know what to say. Like sorry, I had to increase the brightness so you guys can see me. But you guys get my point, right? How is it normal for someone to just wait for someone to just say to say hi to he or she? It doesn't make any sense. When I was sitting alone in Africa, right? I won't say which country, but when I was sitting alone, maybe because I'm white, okay, but I don't care about color. You shouldn't judge someone by the color of their skin. Yes, I'm for that. But what I realized that with Africans, it's not just me. My girlfriend, she told me that, uh, you know, that even people in Africa, they still will look out for you, even though you are alone at home. They ask you from time to time, you know, respectfully. They always check in on you. I think that's really important. We don't have that in the West. We always make an excuse that we don't have time for that because we're too busy with work, too busy with this and with that, and with this schedule and with that schedule. Yes, in life we should have a schedule. Yes, we should plan things. Yes, of course, but I mean, never have we ever had so many schedules. Like, this is really unnatural. Excuse me, really unnatural for us. But anyways, guy, this is just those are just my thoughts about when I was in Africa and when I was there, and I realized how fucked up our social life is in the Western world, and even when I was in China, I realized how fucked up our social life is. Anyways, I hope some people in this video really understood what I was trying to explain here. And this is something that a lot of Westerners and a lot of Easterners really need to wake up to and realize that there is something wrong with us when it comes to our social life. Why are we not happy? Ask ourselves the question. You guys know the answer. And once you guys know the answer, all of us, it's not just one person like myself can change everything. Obviously not. But it's up to all of us. It's up to all of us to change the way we are, change the way society works. Because if we keep going down this road, we're going to feel lonely for the rest of our lives, and this is not healthy for us as human beings. Alright guys, hope you guys liked this video. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to this channel, and hopefully you guys learned something from this video. Till then, much love. Peace.